Hello, Falcon fans. Thank you for tuning into the very first episode of On the Wing, the Cedar Crest Athletics podcast. I am LJ Smith, the Director of Athletic Communications at Cedar Crest College, and I will be your host. On this episode, you will hear the conversation I had with head basketball coach Kristin Karat, learning about her journey as a student athlete from her childhood to conference champion in college. Then, we will discuss her path to becoming the head basketball coach of the Falcons and the other roles she holds, such as the strength and conditioning coach and assistant athletic director for sports performance. And thank you again for joining us on the Wing. I am here with head basketball coach Kristin Karat. How are you doing today, coach?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm very excited to get the first podcast off the ground. Thank you for being the first guest. So let's get into it. So we're going to kind of go through your athletic career all the way from your childhood playing days to high school and college, and then kind of talk about how you became a coach and your experiences and how it brought you to Cedar Crest. So first, how did you get involved in playing your sport of basketball?
I am kind of spoiled. I'm from Connecticut, and their program in Connecticut, I think most people may know they're not bad. I started playing basketball. Probably I want to say probably when I was 6 or 7. And then I'm now going to date myself here, but then in 1995, when UConn won their first national championship, I think every little girl in Connecticut that played basketball at the time just kind of fell in love with it. I mean, the team in '95 just played with so much passion and kind of just showed, little girls in Connecticut that like you can play basketball at a high level. So that definitely started my passion for the game. I played basketball all throughout high school, obviously, and then into college. Funny enough, my first sport in high school though is I was the quarterback of our high school football team. So that I actually, because obviously football comes before basketball season, so that was my
Yeah.
first sport in high school. Um, Pretty quickly, my basketball coach in my freshman year of high school was like, "Yeah, you don't have a future as a quarterback, but you could possibly do something with basketball." So, my football days were short lived. Um, but yeah, I played basketball throughout high school. I started varsity all 4 years, was 1,000 point scorer, yada yada, all that stuff. And then I did have some aspirations of playing Division 1. I think if I had done it differently, I probably could have gotten a few scholarships here and there, but I ended up going to Keene State College for 3 years. I played basketball there for 2. Had a really unfortunate back injury. I ended up herniating a few discs in my back, like just a freak thing that like, and I was never hurt before ever. So that was kind of odd. Ended up transferring to Becker College for my junior and senior year. Had a great little run there. Ended up winning conference title, going to the NCAA tournament. So yeah, it was. I mean, my playing days they're over for sure over at this point. But it was the best. I call it 5 years of my life. And that's something that kind of got me into coaching and giving back for sure.
That's great. That's a nice little tidbit. You as a starting quarterback, I'd love to see photos of that or a video footage just to see you in action, coach. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
that's awesome.
Short-lived, but a lot of
Yeah. So you mentioned about high school being 1,000 point scorer.
fun.
You mentioned you had aspirations of going D1, but ultimately did you know you were going to play in college? Were you recruited? What was the recruiting process like for you along the way?
Yeah, so I did have a feeling that I was gonna play in college. Honestly, at the time, I didn't really know much about Division 3. I was recruited by a good number of Division 1 schools, and honestly, I didn't have a whole lot of guidance in the recruiting process. My parents are definitely not were definitely not involved in my life. So it was just kind of like, oh, what everyone else is doing, like this, what's going on with this? And I think I definitely dropped the ball in a lot of areas in that, which is what I try to bring to coaching now, and to tell the kids now, like, hey, this is a really important decision. Make sure you're doing your homework, make sure you're definitely doing your research on schools. You have someone in your corner that's guiding you in this process, because I didn't have that. So I knew I was going to play in college. I ended up losing kind of two scholarships at the same time via miscommunication. I by no means was a superstar. I probably would have been, if option A, B, and C didn't work out, then here I was, option D for some schools as far as scholarships are concerned. But I ended up calling a coach and turning down a scholarship offer, and my high school coach at the same time was talking to a school, and telling them that I was choosing school A, and I was telling school A that I was choosing school B. And unfortunately, I wasn't good enough on either one's radar to hold a scholarship for. So, that was once again miscommunication. Everything happens for a reason. And so at that point, I was like, I'm not gonna play basketball. In college, I was just gonna go for academics. And then a bunch of my friends, and actually former teammates of mine, and then it turned out to be opponents of mine, were like, you should be going to school and playing basketball. So I ended up going to Keene State. One of my well, I guess former teammates, but also opponent in high school. Funny enough, we played against each other for 4 years in the conference championship, lost all 4 years. But she was like, hey, one of my teammates is going to Keene, like, you should look into it, you guys should be roommates. And at that point I was like, all right. So that's what happened, and we ended up going there, and she played soccer there, and played basketball, and yeah, so that's kind of how I got to school. And then my high school coach got the coaching job at Becker, and for lack of going into that, I basically told him if he ever got a coaching job and I could still play, I would go play for him. So he called me up, not against NCAA rules. I had a previous relationship with him. As he was my
Thank you for clarifying.
yeah,
Yeah.
he was my high school coach, so there was no breaking of NCAA rules there. He basically, he told me that he got the job, and I was like, cool, I'll apply. And he was like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, for sure. And it was awesome. I mean, I went to a school where I definitely could play. I definitely could get some things done. And I think, the best part about transferring to Becker was that at the time it was a program that didn't really know what winning looked like. And it was good to bring kind of my competitive drive. And if anyone's ever seen me coach, we know that I'm pretty competitive. Um, and yeah, we ended up winning a conference championship, and going in the NCAA tournament. So it was definitely worth it, for sure. And yeah.
So, reflecting back, especially for high school, you were inducted into your high school Hall of Fame in 2018. What did that mean to you personally, and who was your biggest influence uh, for you to get into like not just the Hall of Fame, but be that driven?
Yeah, I mean, high school personally for me was tough, for outside factors, but basketball was always my happy place. My teammates, I ended up living with a few teammates throughout high school, and they just it was almost like they saw something in me when it came to basketball that I didn't see for myself. I was definitely not someone that was going to buckle down and study. Even though I did get good grades, it was more like my teammates were like, okay, like, you can focus on basketball, but in order to do that, like, you need to do this. We I played with, I think, I want to say my freshman, sophomore, and junior year teams. I want to say all five of the starting five ended up playing basketball in college.
Wow.
Um, One went to a Division 1 school, and then the rest of us played Division 3. But we were just, it was just an awesome time. I mean, I still talk to most of them today, which I don't know how many people still talk to their high school teammates. College probably, but not high school. Um, yeah, and then I was playing with really good players around me. I had a lot of unselfish teammates. who would get me the ball and didn't mind if I shot and missed 30 times and get the rebound and give it back. And I think winning helps. We were pretty good. Ended up losing to the same school 4 years in a row in the conference championship, but that's okay. I'm almost over that. However many years later. Uh, but but yeah, I mean, I just have really great teammates. I think as far as who, if I had to pick a few teammates, my best friend in high school and her family, she was a year younger than me. She was a much better field hockey player than she was basketball player, but her family was very supportive and very driven and loved that I loved the game of basketball. So that was pretty great. My grandparents, came never missed a game. I mean, I don't think my grandparents ever missed a game in college either. So they were always there supporting. And then my coach was just the best. Which I think is really important, and something that I try to do is he made me compete every single day in some way, shape, or form. Whether it was, if we were playing a team and we were up by 50, well, who can I inspire to get the ball? Who can I make better around me, and how can I make them better? He would tell me that I probably didn't play any defense in high school, which is probably true. So just challenging me in those ways, and then there were days where as a high school player, you were probably being a little bit of a bonehead every now and then, and he would call me out on that, and I loved that. I remember our winter practices. My high school coach was very, very good at basketball, and he would, we would play 5-on-5. He would play, and the next thing I know, I'd look around and nobody else was on the court playing anymore, and we were playing 1-on-1. And like
Wow.
it's just something where he would always like challenge me, and I would love competing against him, and he would never let me win ever. I did win sometimes, but he never, it wasn't like, I mean, he was bigger than me. He's probably just touch under 6 feet tall. And he would post me up and he would be like, sorry, like,
Yeah.
and I loved that because he just didn't let me win. And then when I got to college, it was a little bit different. I was a little bit older. He was a little bit older. He had a few more years under his belt coaching, and we kind of started to have that more of a coach relationship, where I think he saw that coaching was probably going to be in my future. And we talked about the game more. Like, he would call me over and say, okay, what did you see here? What could we do here? Where are our advantages? And I love that, because he still got on me when I was, not doing the things I was supposed to be doing, probably not playing any defense. But it turned into teaching me more of the game and why he would do the things that he would do. So I think, a combination of having great teammates, having supportive people in my corner, and then just having an amazing coach who just challenged me every single day was definitely something that kept me playing.
So when you transferred to Becker, you're a student athlete there again with your
Mhm,
former coach,
mhm,
and then in the 2007-8 season, you go to the NAC championship game and you
mhm,
win.
mhm.
What was going through your head to finally get that championship you couldn't get with your coach in high school, but just to know that you won a conference championship and you're going to the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you exactly. I mean, I have a picture of it. It's one of my favorite pictures ever. I think there was still time on the clock. I honestly don't know. I think there was probably still time on the clock, and I just ran over and I just hugged him. I just like, I was just, and I probably, and I know this is gonna go live, so whatever. Even though I won't admit it, I probably cried a little bit. I probably shed a tear, because it's something that we worked so hard for so many years, and I played AAU for him too. So I played with this man a lot,
Yeah.
and to finally get a championship was awesome. I think every player's dream is to cut a nut down. And I've done it now 3 times, once as a player, twice as a coach, and it's just an amazing feeling. It's an amazing, amazing feeling. And now, that I'm coaching here, and I know how hard a coach has to work, and I know how hard it is to win a championship. That championship ring that we have, means a heck of a lot more. I mean, even though it meant a lot, like now I sit there and I'm like, oof, it was really hard to get that.
Yeah.
But no, it was awesome. It was great. I mean, in that year we were the lowest seed in the tournament. So we had to knock off everybody
Wow.
to win. So it was pretty good.
That's amazing. And you also led the conference in minutes played, like averaging 38 minutes a game. So you were that player that like you probably fought to come off the floor, didn't you?
Oh, I I mean, once again, and this was I played for my coach for many years, so I felt like I could say this. I said, I didn't come here to sit on the bench. I better be playing if I'm gonna play. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I told him I wanted to play for sure. For sure.
And to have that relationship with the coach, how important is that that you've had that experience, but how do you see that as a coach currently? We'll get into the coaching, like your story, but just
Sure.
for this point, what is that like now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's super important. I think you can coach kids a little bit harder when they know that you care about them. And that's a lot of what people don't see behind the scenes. They usually only see a practice or they see a game and they see either how hard or, coaching can run the gamut. Obviously, I'm a little bit more on the hard, yelling, screaming, side. And there are some coaches that sit back and don't do anything, and there's critique on either side, but you have to know what goes behind the scenes. And um yeah, I think that that coach player relationship is super important. The trust factor there, the understanding of, okay, you have to coach a kid this way, or you can, kind of push the limits this way, or you really can't. And that's, it's very, very, very important. And I don't think that those are relationships that you just build in we'll use this year as an example, 114-day, practice season. It's relationships you build, in the recruiting process. It's relationships you build off the court, team bonding, as LJ, but people might not, like our cookie baking competition, right?
Yeah,
It's amazing
absolutely.
to watch these kids compete baking cookies, but it's one of those things where it's like, okay, there is some competitive fire there. How do I figure out how to bring that out on the floor? And I think that that relationship is important because they're not going to know how much you care unless you show them.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Coach, for explaining about your athletic career coming up, and now we're going to step aside quick for a sponsor read, and then we'll come back and talk about how you began your coaching career and also strength and conditioning. Are you looking to get your hands on some Cedar Crest Falcons gear? Head over to cedarcrestathletics.com and click the link under the tab Fan Zone to find our Falcons Sideline store. Each month, there is a promotion that offers a discount to all things Falcons, from hats, hoodies, shirts, and more. Head to our Falcons Athletics Sideline store today. Powered by BSN Sports. Stout Associates certified public accountants provide accounting, tax, and consulting services to small and family-owned businesses by becoming a part of the team. To find out more, visit stoutcpas.com. Stout CPA is proud to sponsor Cedar Crest College Athletics. And we're back with the head basketball coach, Kristin Karat of the Cedar Crest College basketball team. We're going to go into your coaching career a little bit. And also another thing you're a part of here, you're also the strength and conditioning coach at Cedar Crest College, as well as the assistant athletic director for athletic performance. So all of those titles on top of being a head basketball coach, but the journey to get here. Where did you begin coaching?
So I actually started as a strength and conditioning coach. My degree is in exercise science, and I was lucky enough that because of transferring from Keene to Becker, my senior year, I basically just needed to do an internship. And so I was able to work with our athletic trainer at the time, to kind of do an internship. And through that internship, I ended up working with three teams as their strength and conditioning coach. Um, it was my basketball team, men's soccer, and field hockey. And so I started there, and then that next year, the teams decided volunteer, but hired me on as their strength coach for that. So after I graduated that next season, which was cool. It gave me a good. We didn't have a strength and conditioning program at Becker at the time that was like structured. I'm sure each team was kind of doing their own thing, but not an actual program. So I was able to start working with some of the teams there, and then I went to Marquette University for an internship there. And I started working with the women's basketball program and kind of realized that I missed coaching basketball. And I ended up I ended up moving back to Connecticut and talking to one of my former teammates slash opponents who played at Tufts University. And I just asked her, I was like, hey, do you think that Coach Berube would let me be an assistant? And she was like, sure, and ended up getting me in touch with Coach Berube. And um, she had an opening and her volunteer assistant had just left, and she was like, hey, if you want to drive from Hartford, Connecticut to Boston, Massachusetts every day, sure. And I was like, sure. And what's kind of ironic but super exciting for me about that is Carla played on the 1995 UConn national championship team. So it was like kind of coming full circle of how I started playing to now I'm working with you know you know Coach Berube who played on that team. So it took me a little while. Like, I was very nervous at first because I was like kind of like on the team that I idolized, and now, but yeah. So I was lucky enough that she hired me on as a volunteer assistant, and that's when I started doing both. So I was able to work with them, as their strength coach, but also as an assistant basketball coach. And they do have a strength conditioning program there who's awesome. So I didn't I wasn't like creating programs for them or anything. It was just basically following through with the programs that their strength coach at Tufts had done, and then working with them over winter break, working with them on the road, stretching, all that good stuff, that
Yeah.
I was able to incorporate into coaching basketball. And then Coach Berube hired me on for the next 2 years, and I was there for 3 years. We ended up winning the first ever NCAA Championship. In that same year, we ended up going all the way to the Final Four, and it was awesome. It was everything you could ever ask for as a once again working with Carla, who played at UConn, to now being in Division III, and going all the way to the Final Four. So yeah, that was a great experience. I learned like Coach Berube is an amazing coach, X's and O's wise, an amazing defensive coach for sure. But she gets the best out of her players, and she's very subdued in a lot of ways. And it was just really, I just learned so much on the leadership side of things. I learned so much as to how to grow a program, how to recruit, how to find kids that fit your program, not just kids that are really good. And yes, we had plenty of very good kids, but kids that fit your program and fit who you are and fit who you want your program to be, and how to grow alumni. And her alumni relations are just amazing. And I was like, okay, like I can see myself trying to emulate that somewhere else. So I ended up leaving Tufts and coaching in high school for a year. So I was searching for jobs, and then at Nichols for a year for a friend of mine. And at Nichols, actually, I worked a lot more with the strength conditioning side of things. That's where I was really, I was designing the programs, I was carrying them out. It was a little bit different. And same thing for the men's basketball team at the time. And actually, I was probably more connected with the men's basketball program there than the women's at certain points, even though I was coaching. But it was that kind of propelled me to I think I'm ready to lead my own program, and then here I am.
That's great. Now, you mentioned going to the Final Four with Coach Berube.
Mhm.
A NESCAC school in itself, the conference is one of the toughest conference in Division III basketball.
Mhm.
What you obviously learned a lot from her, but what's the one poignant thing that you use today that she has taught you so far, that in your coaching philosophy at Cedar Crest?
you, you gotta play defense. You gotta be able to defend. I think that's the one thing that as a player, I think we talked about this a little bit before. I didn't value the defensive end. I always thought you could just outscore people, and that's not the case. I was amazed at there's tons of talent in the NESCAC. There's tons of talent all over the country, but there's a ton of talent in the NESCAC. And it was just amazing how, she would get her players to just hold the other team's leading scorer under their average every game. And don't quote me on the every game, but I'm pretty sure it was almost every game. And when I was there, we had the defensive player of the year every year. And that was a big part of why we won. We went to the Sweet 16 my first year when I was a volunteer, and we didn't have one player that averaged over 10 points a game. And
Oh.
that's we could score, but we wouldn't let the other team score either.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of the brand of NESCAC basketball. It's very defensive, but that's the one thing is you got to be able to defend, and you have to bring energy. You have to communicate, and I think that that fits really well with the Division 3 mentality.
That's great. Now, you've been at Cedar Crest. This would have been your 5th season.
Mm.
Um, what brought you here other than it being a first-time head coaching position? But you've been here for 5 years. You've had a lot of room to grow, including strength and conditioning coach, assistant athletic director. What brought you to Cedar Crest?
Honestly, talking to Dr. Snook the very first time, you know, I I saw that there was an opportunity to create something here and an opportunity to grow the program in a lot of different ways, academically, basketball wise. Like this program was up and coming, and it needed a revival of energy. And I think that that was something that I can bring. I think energy is not something that I lack when it comes to coaching, but also the ability to create our strength conditioning program. As you mentioned at the time, there was 9 teams, I believe, when I first started.
Yeah.
There were 9 teams when I first started, and just being able to create that from the ground up, and being able to do both. I love working with our student athletes, and now I get to work with all of our student athletes. I go to the games, and I think the one thing that I do love and that does keep me here is that I can wear two different hats, right? I can be on the basketball sideline, and people see me in that way, and then I can go to a soccer game and be their biggest fan, or a softball game, or field hockey game, lacrosse, whatever it may be. And I'm yelling and screaming. I probably don't know the rules, but I'm their biggest fan, and I think that that matters. I think that having our all of our coaches here and all of our teams have me as their support staff, where they know, like, I'm gonna, and the players and the student athletes do too, is they know that they're gonna get a high five from me when they need to, or a little pep talk when they need it. But that was what drew me here. What's kind of kept me here, once again, being able to do both. Our athletic department, I think that we have an amazing athletic department. I love all of our coaches. Once again, our student athletes, and of course, our athletic director is extremely supportive in every way, shape, or form. I think he comes to all of our games. It's a great place to have your first head coaching opportunity, because there's so much room to grow. There's so much room to learn, and it's so supportive.
And piggybacking off that, that's the main reason for myself as well to come here and realize that we have an opportunity to learn on our own in our first either head coach, director, whatever the position is.
Mhm.
You may not figure it out the first time, which is completely okay, but the staff here has been nothing but supportive of every single program, and obviously I cover all the programs.
Mhm.
You are like the strength and conditioning coach for all the programs. It's so invigorating to see the growth from, especially when you started me 3.5 years ago, to where we are today. And
Yeah.
that's a credit to the recruiting from our coaching staff, the type of kids that we're bringing in, and the academic programs here. It's to see it come full circle is just it's so inspiring, and to have someone like you who gets to not only see your team but to see the entire athletic department grow, it must be very rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, I just and all of our programs have grown leaps and bounds, but I think about our soccer program and where they were when I first started to playing in back-to-back conference championship games. Obviously not this year because of the pandemic, but Yeah, and just to see the fight and the desire, and not that you ever want to see tears in a student athlete's eyes by any means, but like, when they lose, they're visibly upset because they don't know what it's like to lose anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that success inspires everyone else's success. When that's all you know, that's all you know. And
Yeah.
with a super supportive athletic program, athletic department, I should say, yeah, it breeds success. And some programs move faster than others, but that desire and that mentality and that overall collective, like, we want to win, we want our student athletes to have a great experience, but we think winning is part of that great experience.
Now, speaking of academic success, your basketball team received the Colonial States Athletic Conference, the CSAC 2018-19 Academic Team Award. What did that mean to you, knowing that you came into a program and success was something you wanted to provide, and it came academically as well?
Yeah, when I got the job, we had the lowest GPA in the athletic department. And that I know needed to change. I say this to every recruit that comes through. You know, unless I just I'm just an amazing basketball coach, you're probably gonna you're not gonna go to the WNBA. But you are going to be professional in some other part of your life. Whether it's a nurse, whether it's criminal justice, whatever it is,
Mhm.
you really have to buy into that. And academics are super, super important. We obviously had great student athletes in our program, but having the valedictorian of the 2020 graduating class helped with that award for sure.
Absolutely.
I think having a 4.0 every semester helps, but yeah, that's one thing that I made sure I emphasized as soon as I got the job here, and that led to some people not staying on our team. And it's hard,
Yeah.
balancing academics and athletics, and most of my student athletes work too. That's really hard, but it's worth it, and you have to want to do it. And I was lucky that I had kids that bought into it, and yeah, I tell them all the time, they're a lot smarter than me.
Well, getting them to buy in is one thing, but
Mhm.
getting them to be involved in the community. So having your day of service for the WBCA day in Allentown School District, but also something very dear to your heart, the Alzheimer's Walk. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and how it's very important to you, but also your team knows how important it is, and just having that connection with them allows you to even appreciate that day more with your student athletes?
Yeah, I mean, the Alzheimer's Walk is in September every year. And yeah, I mean, one thing that I definitely brought in my program was my grandmother, who had Alzheimer's. And actually, one of the the reason I started coaching was, so we talked about when I came back from Marquette, and I knew that I wanted to coach basketball. But the reason why it kind of happened the way that it did is my grandfather ended up passing away, and in his will, all he wanted me to do was to coach basketball at a small Division 3 school. Now, my grandfather knew nothing about Division 1, 2, and 3. I don't think that he knew that UConn was Division 1 and like Cedar Crest was Division 3. Like, I don't think he got that, but that's what he had in his will. So I was like, well, now I have to do it. And I was lucky, once again, that Coach Berube, hired me on as a volunteer and so on and so forth. But sports have always been really, really big in my family. And my when my grandmother, we started to notice the decline. I knew that I wanted to bring a little bit of empathy and compassion, from something that matters to me into my program, so that I could coach them a little bit harder. And they bought into it. At the beginning, we would FaceTime my grandmother as we'd walk around, and she'd be like, "Oh," and they were Team Old Lady Faye, and it was a great thing. And once you connect with your players on that level, you find that I had players that had connections to someone that either suffered from or cared for or died from Alzheimer's. This year in particular, it was once again because of COVID. So trying to see the highlights in it. we were able to have, I think, 4 or 5 teams participate, and even one of our soccer players' families came because her grandmother had suffered from Alzheimer's. So it was a way to unite our entire athletic department. But as far as my team is concerned, yeah, they love it. They love to, once again, they get to walk around Bethlehem, so they're very happy about that. And my dogs come and they're very
Yeah.
happy about that. But yeah, I mean, giving back is really important. I think for me last year, when it was still able to be at the steel stacks in Bethlehem. We had a woman come up to us and say, we see you guys here every year. It's so great to see like a college out here supporting it. And that's what means the most,
Yeah.
is to know that they have no idea what our record is. They probably have no idea that I'm the coach. They probably think I'm a player. But to be out there and show support for something that's bigger than ourselves, that's very important.
And especially with this past walk being virtual,
Mhm.
we did it around the Rose Garden right behind campus.
Mhm.
But you having that connection as the strength and conditioning coach, you got other teams involved. And it wasn't just because they felt the need to, like they knew it was supporting you and your grandmother, but also you see that other teams have family situations in a similar boat.
Mhm.
To connect with them and share that moment must have been really touching.
Yeah, it was awesome. And unfortunately, I had an idea that this would probably be the last walk that my grandmother would be around for. um but yeah, once again, just seeing, unfortunately, this walk is always a year that we have 3 home games, right? Volleyball's playing, feel like we're playing, soccer's
Correct.
playing.
Yeah.
So none of the teams can come because obviously their buddies are helping out the other
Yeah.
teams.
Absolutely.
So this year, it was serendipitous in a way. You have to see the silver lining through it. But yeah, it was awesome that they came out. It was actually even raining.
Yeah.
And we still got the a bunch of student athletes to come out. A few coaches came down. Dr. Snook had purple on with his family, and we had all our masks on and socially distant walked and tried to take pictures as we could.
Great. Yeah.
But yeah, it's awesome. And I think, sometimes as coaches, and not that this is why you do it, but sometimes as coaches, you hope that you're making an impact. You hope that these kids understand how much you care, even though I'm the one that's making them do squats and deadlift and run and all that stuff. But to see them show up for something that's personal to me, it is awesome, and it's why you do it, for sure.
Epic Tours is the exclusive charter bus company for Cedar Crest College athletics. Specializing in group travel by motor coach, Epic Tours can accommodate trips ranging from corporate events to wedding shuttles to cross-country trips. When planning your next trip, call Epic Tours at 844-EPIC-BUS. That's 844-374-2281. Or you can visit them on the web at epictoursgroup.com. The Lehigh Valley Health Network is the primary healthcare provider for Cedar Crest College athletics. LVHN, a passion for better medicine. We'll touch upon a couple of recent and current players. Um, Most recently, Ashley Wilson has joined the team last December, January, transferring in and then made an immediate impact, not only for the team, but the CSAC getting on weekly awards from them, but scoring enormous amounts of points. What has she been to the team since she's joined, not only just as a scorer and a teammate, but personally to the program?
Yeah, I knew that she had the ability to be super special when I started recruiting her. She's from Connecticut, which obviously I'm a little biased, but yeah, I recruited her really hard. Going into last year, and she ended up getting a full Division II scholarship. So I couldn't really fault her
Yeah.
for that by any means, even though I was like, it pained me to not get her. And then she ended up transferring to us. And I told her once all of her paperwork and everything went through, I was like, you're gonna start on December 28th. I believe that was
Yeah.
against that. Yeah, Lancaster Bible. And she was like, what? And I was like, no, you're gonna start. So like you're gonna have to learn to play really quick, because I think our first practice back was probably the 26th. And yeah, she grabbed her playbook, and once again, I thank my lucky stars every day that Venus Cabrera was on my team, because Venus probably sat down and taught her the plays from every single position. Um, and yeah, she stepped up. I think she had 28 points in her first game.
Yeah.
And I think we just actually just talked about this the other day with her dad. Her first play of the game, I think Jem won the tip, got the ball to Ashley. Ashley dribbled up, and she was like two or three. I would say 2 or 3 steps behind the 3 point line, and I was like, shoot. She literally looked at me, and she was like, what? I was like, shoot the ball.
Yeah.
She made it. She made her first three, and she looked at me, and I was like, I didn't bring you here not to shoot. But Ashley brings a competitive nature. Ashley brings a different brand of basketball. If you actually watch her, she can score. But she's not score first. She's looking to pass the ball, and that's one thing that my team, my current players, weren't used to. The first couple of games, we had a lot of broken noses, right? A lot, but a lot of balls hit a lot of players. Because they weren't used to that. They weren't used to someone who's going to drive and not force up a shot, but kick it. And once my team got used to that, we won a lot more games in that second semester, and we ended up beating the number 2 team in the conference in our final game.
Correct.
So she brought it. She brings a competitiveness. She brings athleticism. I mean, she's super athletic. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what she's going to do. I mean, unfortunately this year, but in her next 4 years of what she's going to allow me to recruit, and what and how good she's going to make everyone around her, because I think she's got the ability to make my current players really really good as well.
It's inspiring to see especially I wasn't able to be at that first game, the
Mhm.
first home game of the new year, but just to see the energy she brought to what your team already had, it was a whole nother level. And
Mhm.
especially I'm just thinking back to the half court shot she hit right before halftime
Yeah,
against,
that was our last game. Yeah.
like, I just remember no one was shocked. Everyone kind of expected it to go in. Like they were just like, oh yeah, it went in, and then everyone just was like, cool, yeah, let's go to the locker room and get ready to come out. Like it's such a different brand of basketball,
Yeah.
and it takes time. I think that's the thing to note, that it's not going to happen overnight, and being persistent is key in this point, and not forcing things, but letting it come naturally to the kids with positive coaching.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that it's like it's tough is our injuries, and every year we've brought in recruits that I was really excited about, and they all ended up getting injured before the season even started, so before they even got to me. So it's one of those things where you recruit and you think you're going to have these kids, and then someone gets hurt, and now you're kind of, I don't want to say backpedaling, but backtracking a little bit and saying, okay, now where do we go from here, because we thought we were going to have this. And with Ashley, knock on wood, she's pretty healthy, and she can get banged around, and she's good. So now we can build around her. And hopefully with this 2021 class, we've got a couple of good commits already. We can put some pieces around her to add to what we already have. And I was really bummed that this year got canceled. I mean, I understand it, completely understand it, but we had, just in the few practices we had in the fall, we have great chemistry. They know that they need to get Ashley the ball, but Ashley knows that when she gives the ball up, that we have the talent around her to rise with her. So I'm excited for the hope of next year.
Absolutely. And then just one last point to talk about. You had a Falcons Athlete of the Year, I believe it's last year or 2 years ago at this point, Mackenzie Borger.
Mhm,
She transferred in as well,
mhm,
stepped up when an injury occurred on your team, with Gemini.
mhm.
Um, what has she meant to the program? Just because she not only stepped up, but she communicates well, and she's just one of those key players, glue players, along with both the twins, Venus and Gemini. But to have a group like that on the floor that you could trust, does that make a difference for you, like comfortability wise?
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, you got to have players you can trust. And Mac, yeah, Mac was rookie of the year for Cedar Crest. We won't get into the rest of that, but yeah, she was rookie of the year for Cedar Crest. And I mean, I think, like, to see her growth as a player, She wasn't sure if she wanted to play. She knew she wanted to play, but she had some hurdles to get over, and just to see her growth as a leader. I mean, she's a captain for me now. She's someone who I don't have to question their work ethic. I know what I'm going to get day in and day out. She's going to give me her all. And if you see her play, the girl spends more time on the ground than standing upright, right? She attacks the basket hard. She's not afraid to dive after loose balls. When you have players, or when you have, someone like Ashley who can score, but you have players around that you can trust to get the ball, or to be in the right position, or to set her up, or even, if Ashley shot 3 or 4 times, and let's say airball 3 or 4 times, you have a player like Mac to like kind of tap her on the back and say, like, keep shooting, like, it's okay. Or as Mac has done multiple times last year, score 18 or 20 points in a game, out of nowhere, because she's like, okay, well, we're having an off day, so I guess I'll do it. And it's
Yeah.
like, cool, you can do it all the time if you want to. Like,
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. But yeah, and I think, the great thing about having a team that all gets along but all supports each other is, we all have things that go on in our personal lives, and our team has always been there to lift each other up. And Nala died, obviously, for those of you who don't know. Nala, my golden retriever, who came to all of our practices and all of our games, passed away. And then, 2 days later, Mac's grandfather passed away, who came to almost all of our games. And that next game, that was our first week where we, in a long time, where we had 2 win weeks. Mac came to Bryn Athyn the day after her grandfather died, and I think had a career high in points, if not really close. She had like 18 or 20 points, and helped us win that game. We didn't win that game by very much, and she helped us win that game. And then that next Saturday, we won at Cairn for the first time in a long time, and Jem obviously scored our 1,000th point. So, it's things like that where we can rally around each other and raise our spirits through the game of basketball.
And the last thing I'll touch on is being a coach during a pandemic. What have you learned from yourself about how to coach your current student athletes? But obviously recruiting was on pause, but now things are starting to pick back up. What has the pandemic taught you as a head coach?
Uh, I think, and I think I take this from being, the strength and conditioning coach as well. Empathy and sympathy. Obviously, when this all started in March, our spring sports were the first ones to lose. And what I try to stress this to everyone else, is what they have to remember is, we started working in August. We started working in September. They started in the weight room with me in September, running sprints, doing all this stuff, and we kept it going. And then it just stopped, right? And of course, in my mind, in their mind, like, it's not for nothing, but that's how they see it at first. It's, well, why do I do this? Why do I do that? So it was like keeping them engaged, and obviously, doing those uh Facebook Live or Instagram Live workouts, whatever, and trying to keep them engaged and keep them have fun, and not lose my personality that in the weight room that they come to see, and they know that they're gonna get when we're doing that. Um, and then the fall, we did it all over again, right? When fall sports lost their sport, and we're on campus thinking, okay, we may play, but then they're out there. We're still out there at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
lifting, still out there, doing those open strength conditioning sessions and whatnot. And then we have our winter sports, right? So now I'm coaching basketball with my team with masks on, outside on a tennis court for the first time ever, because obviously our court flooded. And it's in the one thing that I said when our season got canceled is, I've never been more proud of being a basketball coach here at Cedar Crest than I was through this fall, because they never complained that we were practicing outside, even when the wind was blowing so bad that, like, shooting there was no point.
Yeah.
They didn't complain with the masks on. They didn't complain. They didn't complain about taking their temperature. They didn't complain about having one ball and the hand sanitizer and all of this stuff. It's like we all adapted, and they taught actually me a lot, whereas I'm pretty rigid. I'm pretty, like, there's a way I want things done. And this year, that went out the window. And them rolling with it and going with the flow and allowed me to kind of woosah, as I use that term a little bit, to be like, okay, well, they're still here, and Fife's rolling her sleeves up to try to get a touchdown while she's outside, and I'm like, okay, and you have to know Fife to know why that's funny, but it's definitely made me more sympathetic and empathetic. And honestly, the first day we got back in the office after we were done quarantining and whatnot, I walked into Dr. Smith's office and I was like, I really, really, really love my job. I think sometimes, with the go, 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 go of it, in losing and winning and all the things that come into coaching a Division III sport and being a strength coach, sometimes you forget why you do it, and all of a sudden when it stops, you feel like a piece of you is missing. And I think that's one thing that coaching through this pandemic has taught me is that I really do love what I do.
Have a greater appreciation.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And even seeing my players, as much as I love seeing them, during the season, after going so long without like hearing Fife's, "Hey coach," like you miss it,
Yeah.
you miss it, and you miss, all of Maya's Dunkin' Donuts cups all over the place. You just you miss those things about your kids, and you're just reminded that you're so lucky to call this a job.
Absolutely. And you touched on it. How excited are you to have a brand new basketball floor?
Oh, I love it. It's so pretty.
I just
It's
can't. Unfortunate for why we had to get a new floor. Like
Mhm.
you mentioned, it did flood during the summer of obviously 2020. I think that's enough to say. But
Yeah.
the idea that we have a brand new basketball court,
Mhm.
can't imagine how excited you are to get on the court with your team. Obviously, with the
Mhm.
season being canceled, how are you getting your team excited to like that is your floor when we are ready to go, like just like getting them hyped up for it.
Yeah, I think Ashley, and maybe Sam are the only ones that have seen it so far.
Okay.
Actually, I don't know if Sam's seen it, but Ashley's seen it in person, and she was like, "Coach, it looks much better than the pictures you sent." And I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "Imagine how good it's gonna look with some championship banners up there someday."
Absolutely.
And I think, you know, I think the team that I have now, it I actually said this to Coach Z the other day. I was talking to him, and with the graduation of Megan Gregory, again,
Megan's been here for
Venus
like what, 6 years?
for 6 years, yeah. With the graduation of Greg, Gem, and Venus, um, it was kind of, I think, apropos for there to be like a small halt in like Cedar Crest basketball to be like, okay, how do we move forward without three people that have really made this program over the last 4 years to now it's like a new, it's going to be a new version. We're certainly not doing the things that we did, in the past, and we're moving forward a little bit differently. We're a very athletic team. We're a very small team, but we're a very athletic team. So I think they're excited to get out there. It's almost like a new floor. What do they say? Like new whatever who this, or new number
Yeah.
who this kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Maya's gonna kill me for saying that. But like that's kind of how they're looking at it. Is like, they've emailed me or sent me texts like, hey coach, can we do this? Hey coach, what do you think about a 1-2-2? What do you think about trapping this? I'm like, you're just at home thinking this up on yourself. Okay. So yeah, they're excited. They're excited for sure. Once again, we canceled all basketball stuff most for the season. But they're excited to get in here. I mean, I told them they can come and shoot, obviously. But yeah, they're excited. They're excited.
Well, thank you, Coach, for joining me on the first ever episode of On the Wing. I'm with head basketball coach Kristin Karat of the Cedar Crest College basketball team. Thank you, Coach. The first ever episode.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for tuning in to On the Wing, the Cedar Crest Athletics podcast. To stay connected to all things Cedar Crest Athletics, head to our website at cedarcrestathletics.com. Also, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. While you're at it, give Coach Karat and the Cedar Crest College basketball team a follow as well. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time on the Wing. I'm your host, LJ Smith, signing off.